when.
Hello, this is part 2 of our kinesiology project. Today we're going to be dealing with thixotrophy, piezoelectric responses, and colloidal properties. Piezoelectric response is an electrical response on a certain type of crystal or tissue in relation to the energy transferred from pressure and heat. So over here we have 3 simple ice cubes. I wish I had square ones. We're going to turn this one on its side if it'll let me. And just by applying my finger, it's slippery, okay? I mean, it's not slippery here, but it's slippery. It'll start to slide. Now, why is it sliding? Because what's actually happening is the energy from my finger and the heat from my hand is causing the ice to change. That is a physioelectric response to my hand. And if I keep working like this, you'll notice, if it'll show up, and I'm going to change fingers because this thing's cold. A slight change in shape. Can't really see it there. I might see it here. But if I keep doing that, at the top of this, more pressure here, glide to the ends. More pressure here, glide to the ends. You'll notice what part of the ice is going to dissolve first. This part right here, because it's responding to more pressure and more heat. That is the physioelectrical response. Thixotrophy and colloidal properties. So, what better example to demonstrate muscle and connective tissue than muscle and connective tissue? So you'll notice right now, this is in a solid shape. Now, obviously, if we're talking about a body, this has skin and layers over it. But for this, if I deep pressure, if I push directly, how much of the tissue changes? Now, obviously, if you use too much pressure, what happens? But very little physical change. But if I take this and I use its colloidal properties, because the fat will pick up the heat from my hands, the energy from my hands, and the more I work this, the softer this will become, the more the fat will warm, and this will start to become very soft and very gooey, okay? Now, something else us massage therapists do is we add something to reduce friction. So by adding an oil or a lubricant, what happens with the colloidal property of the muscle and connective tissue? Well, as you see, blend that in. And yes, I'm making meatloaf burgers. It glides more. You'll notice it runs more through my fingers. It gets softer and gentler. And the more the egg gets worked in, the less friction coefficient there is in the connective tissues and the muscles, and this becomes very gelatinous. Okay, now again, if I add the egg and I poke it, well, that's going to work the tissue that's firmer here. That's going to take forever to just deep pressure that. Okay, so you have to work it gently and slowly, use the heat and the friction coefficient or lack thereof, and you can get a muscle to relax. Now, how do I use that in my massage therapy practice? Well, obviously, if you have muscle tissue that is very firm, if you attack it directly, you might get somewhere in a specific spot, but a couple things are going to happen. Number one, you do that too hard on somebody, they're not going to appreciate you a whole lot. And you're not changing much of the surrounding tissue, okay? But if you work gently and you use your effleurage and your petrissage and you get the friction coefficient down, you can get the tissue to relax, you can get the connective tissue to work through and go back to the way it's supposed to be. Thank you. That concludes our first video.